Hey, y'all. I'm glad you're here. And I had a question for you. So, have you ever wondered why your partner doesn't approach you in a more soft, kind way? Because if she did, then maybe this would work a little bit better than coming at you maybe directly and feeling so intense about her approach. Have you ever wondered why she doesn't just show up more soft and see that? That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Beyond the Facade podcast. I'm your host, Luke Gordon, and I'm thrilled to have you join me in this space today. What we're going to be doing is diving deep into the trials and triumphs and truths of seeking authenticity. Becoming your true self isn't about a single action or moment. It's a relentless pursuit, a commitment to self that reveals the rich connection and meaning that our life has to offer. So whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a regular listener, know this: what you're building here goes beyond a conversation. You're here to challenge, to change, and to celebrate the incredible journey of becoming your authentic self. Because when you dare to show up fully, the rewards are immeasurable. So welcome to Beyond the Facade. Let's get started. Hali, welcome to the Beyond the Facade podcast. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I've known Hali a very long time. I don't know, I guess a relatively long time. And I had a chance to be around her. A lot of respect for the work that you do, Hali. For those of you who don't know Hali, she leads our Help Her Heal groups at Choose Recovery Services. And from the feedback that I get from men is she can see both sides. It's nice to be able to talk to somebody that's been through and experienced betrayal trauma, but also understanding what the person seeking recovery, a little bit of what their experience is like too, and could be validating. Hali, anything you want people to know about you before we start to dig into some of this content?
No, really, I think they can, if you want to know more, you can find my bio on the Choose team page. And if you want to check out my other podcast or my podcast, I host with one of our other Choose colleagues, Stephanie Hamby. We co-host the Choosing to Stay After Infidelity and Betrayal podcast. Come join us over there if you want more. Our target audience is couples who are working through recovery, because we know even if you choose to stay, it doesn't mean it's easy. So we talk
That
about topics like that.
does not mean you've been doing that for a bit now, haven't you?
Yeah, I think we're almost 80 episodes now, a little over a
Uh,
year. So
you
yeah,
do a celebration for 100?
I don't know. I would have to think about that, but we should.
Good stuff. Yeah, thank you for being here. Okay, so the topic we have set us up for, so you lead the Help Her Heal group, and there's this reoccurring theme that can show up. And do you mind setting us up with it, Hali?
Yeah. So I not only see this in my Help or Heal groups, which I love the Help or Heal groups. I love working with the guys who are really working hard to rebuild trust and create safety. And I hear it there, but I also see it in some of my couples coaching sessions, or even from the betrayed partners who say, he thinks I'm attacking him. That's not what I'm doing. And so the dynamic is that when, and I hate to talk in like gender specifics, but just for the ease of conversation, we're going to go with the betrayed partner is the wife, and the one who's working to rebuild trust is the husband. Okay. For ease of conversation.
Mhm.
But when she is maybe has a concern, she might be activated by something. She might be having a lot of strong emotions, and she comes to him with either she needs some clarification, or she has some hurt, she has some pain that she wants to express. I often hear from the guys that she's coming at me, she's attacking me. I don't know why she gets so aggressive. And what I have come to understand is that it feels like an attack, and I suspect that it's triggering some shame underneath there. And so they tend to go to defensive mode, or they shut down, or they withdraw, which actually contributes to more pain that she's experiencing. And then the cycle just continues to grow, and the emotions get bigger. And usually there's nothing productive that comes out of that. And so I also want to just say that both of us, betrayed partners, husbands and wives, we're all 100% responsible for our own behaviors, our own words, our own actions. And when you're activated, we all know we're in our emotional brain, not in our logical brain. And so sometimes we don't show up in a healthy way. And when we both get activated in the middle of that, there's not a lot of healthy going on. So I just want to, was interested in talking about this with you today, Luke, so we can shed some light and some understanding about what goes on for both parties and maybe walk away with some more understanding of how to step out of that cycle.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a conversation I had one time with a guy, and he said there was something intense going on in their lives, and he was doing his best to figure it out, and he had to like fix something or do something. And he felt like she had something critical to say about that they'd had a history of him hearing her say, you're not doing that the right way, or you should know how to do this already, or at least that's what he felt. And immediately his response was anger. And he was able to identify with that response and anger that was born in his family of origin, like that response of anger. And he was able to acknowledge that anger was effective. And he didn't say it that way. He didn't go like, hey, Luke, I'm going to brag to you about my effective way of handling this conflict, which is anger. He actually hated the anger piece that would show up for him. And he wanted to destroy that anger piece. And then we identified, hey, where does anger come from for you? And we're not going to talk about this part, but just if you're wondering, he identified like, well, it works. And ultimately, I view her saying you're incompetent. And if I can get rid of her feeling that I'm incompetent, then she's accepting of me if that's not there. And I really value this relationship. So his anger was showing up to like be helpful. He couldn't see that. He just saw that I need to get rid of my anger. I need to start being not angry when she tells me when she's saying this way. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about, but it sets it up at least for the experience of he had a lens he looked through when she used words. Now, I'd place a decent amount of money on, from knowing the man, that his wife views him as very competent. And I don't know if a lot of people stay in relationships with people that are just like, this is a completely incompetent person, right? For some reason, his lens that he was looking through the experience was not showing him like actually what she was experiencing in that moment in her communicating with him. It was distorted. That's not surprising to him. He can see that in his good moment. And yeah, like Hali, I think about that lens in which he's looking through, and I'm like, it's easiest for say on this podcast, but what is, if we could actually see reality in that moment, it would change everything for us. And this is the reality. I'd love to hear what you think about this, Hali, which is I heard somebody say one time, when she shows up with her trigger and her emotional response, whether in reality is big or whatever it is, that is her vulnerable attempt to connect with me. That is her vulnerable attempt to move and actually be relational, to desire that connection. I don't know. What do you think about that, Hali?
I think you're 100% spot on. I think that when she's activated around something, what she's seeking is safety and security. And so she's coming to you, and if has a lot of strong emotion around it, she's in an activated state. What she's really looking for is for connection. And this is one of the things in our empathy work in the Help Her Heal group, is that if he can step into that space of empathy, and I also validate that I know that's not easy to do, because when she's activated, oftentimes it makes sense why they're activated. But if he can work to stay grounded and he can do a move toward her instead of a run away or a shut down or a get big, actually it can help co-regulate, because what she's looking for is safety and security and connection. And she wants to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I think is important is that there's probably not anything you can do to solve the pain or the problem, whatever the challenge is. She's not, most of the time, not looking for a solution. So she doesn't need you to fix it. She doesn't need you to step in and try to make it go away. She needs you to hear her. She needs you to validate her pain and to create some sort of safety and security around it, which then will lead you to connection. And oftentimes you'll see it like just, it'll just shut down, it'll co-regulate, it'll help her come back to grounded if she knows that she's been seen and she's been heard.
Mm,
Because if she's not seen and she's not heard, that feels like a threat to her. It feels like a threat to her safety and security. If you can't see and understand her, then what does that mean for the relationship? And what does that mean for her safety and security?
mm. I love that so much. And I'm thinking about those who are listening. If we're going to go that traditional the man being the person that's betraying, is he's listening to this, him going like, yeah, she's telling me specifically something that she needs me to take action on. She is showing up in my world saying, hey, do it better. That's what he's hearing. I'm not saying that's what she's saying. That's what I'm hearing. You did it wrong. Like, it might feel like it's all about like something that she's trying to, need you to be different or whatever it is. What's so interesting is I love that, Hali, you show up and you just really seek to understand. Set all your stuff to the side, be a partner with her in that experience, going, tell me what you're seeing, help me understand. It feels, and I guess, Hali, I haven't been betrayed. So if you could speak to this, it'd be great. Like that it feels different for her once she's actually heard than it does before she's not even validated or heard.
100%. It literally is a physical shift. So where she's felt big and tense and I don't know, all the things that you feel when you're in an activated state, it literally is a physical shift when she feels seen and heard and understood. And
Yeah.
another thing along those lines is I've been in sessions with couples where they both are in the same experience and they have totally different,
Oh, yeah.
like they would describe it totally differently. Isn't what she said? That's not what he said. That's not how. And so this is where that seeking to understand, I think, is so important, is that we can both be in the same room and have the same, going through the same thing, but your perception of an interaction or even the way you hear it, like you said, can be totally different. So slowing things down and instead of getting big, trying to regulate and move toward instead of move away changes everything for that dynamic.
Yeah. A couple things, because you use the words slower, and I wanted to, let's slow it down, like slow that it might almost just be painfully slow. First of all, let's identify one thing. If we talk about aggression, let's recognize the difference between physical and verbal aggression. And Hallie, you brought this up earlier when we were talking, but there's a difference between the two. So that verbal aggression, based upon all of my experiences with my family of origin, because that lens I look through, it might not be reality. Like I swear my partner's yelling at me, but if I play it back and I get the camera out, not saying you should record stuff and do this. I did not encourage you to record the conversation. But if you actually did, and somebody would like, it's just going through that lens. But if there is physical aggression, that's different. That's way different than the verbal, because the verbal aggression really is about her speaking, and it might get louder over time. It's about her desiring the relationship, going after it. But anyway, any thoughts on that, Hallie?
Yeah, no, I think it's really important that we differentiate between the physical and verbal aggression because physical aggression is never okay. It's never okay. And then also some of the work I do with betrayed partners is communicating in a more healthy way that does remove criticism and accusations and things like that. So early on in a betrayed partner's journey, it's super hard because they're in so much pain to control that. And so sometimes it does come out as criticism and accusation. And that's the betrayed partner's work, is to get to a place where they can have some internal psychological boundaries of their own, where they learn how to express what they're feeling from a lens of, when this happens, this is how I feel, instead of you did and you did that and you did this. But what I have seen and witnessed even in couple sessions is that she can do that and say that, and it is still sometimes perceived as an attack or criticism, which is where I suspect there's shame getting triggered underneath that because of what you're referring to, the lens that they see the world through, that's getting bumped up against.
Yeah.
And another thing that you talked about that I think is important for both spouses to know is like our body language and our tone of voice is huge in all of this stuff, because you can say the same words with a different tone of voice or a different posture, and it comes across in a totally different meaning. Because I've seen it where like guys will say, I know, I've hurt you and I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that I did that. And that is a totally different message than if you say it from a softer standpoint that says, I know, I can see your pain, and I know that the things that I've done have contributed to this pain, and I am so sorry. That is different, totally different message, same words. And so I
Oh,
think we have to pay attention to that as well.
I got a question for you. So a lot of the times I notice what the experience is he cares and he worries that what comes out of his mouth is going to sound like a script. And so can we talk about the difference between the guy that's like working, that's worried about the script compared to the one that you said? I don't know. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah,
From more from that side?
this is how I talk about it, because the guys in my Help for Heal group say, my wife just tells me I'm just regurgitating what Hallie says, and that
Uh-huh.
I'm just therapizing everything. And I look at it like, if you have never been modeled or you don't know the language of empathy, it's like learning a foreign language. And so if you were learning a foreign language and you went to another country and you started trying to speak it, you would be regurgitating it in a memorized way. And you would be hoping that you said the right thing. And you might say something that comes out and it's a totally different meaning, but what you said was what you thought. And so I encourage the guys to just keep pushing through that until the language of empathy becomes more natural. And I think it will, as they organically seek to understand their wife. I think empathy is a skill that can be developed. And so as they grow in their ability to have empathy, the words come out and feel more sincere.
Yeah.
But early on, they're just learning. Like they don't even know the words to say that even sound empathetic. And so I understand the frustration of that from a betrayed partner's standpoint. And at the same time, I think we need to give some grace for them attempting to learn how to show up in empathy. And over time, I believe it becomes more sincere. I don't know. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, and those of you who are, like, wanting all of a sudden to take Hallie's snippet right there and go tell it to your partner, says, "Hey, can you give me some grace?" Just recognize where that comes from, of how heavy it is, but also that it's, "I don't have the capacity to be present in there, and I'd be really nice to just have some grace." So, there's 2 pieces that come up for me on this one, which is the script that I'm using, that I'm feeling scripted. I'm like, Is this authentic?" But I'm trying, versus the other one, which is, can you say it again? The one that you gave as an example?
I said something along the lines of, yeah, I know. I know you're in pain, and I know that I hurt you, and I'm so sorry that I did that.
Mhm.
See, the aggression is the tone of voice is send a totally different message.
So if that doesn't make any sense, I'll have you look at it. Not that the way you explained it doesn't make any sense, Hallie, but more of the, if the concept still feels like fuzzy, I don't know what I'm doing. Take a step back and go, what is my motivation? What are my motives? If my motivation and motives are to hurry the conversation up or get through the conflict to meet the end goal, which is her feeling better and her not being activated, then recognizing that part of. But if it's really out of values, but more out of, yeah, take the space that you need to share what you're experiencing, that will clear some of that stuff up. And if your partner goes to you and if your partner says to you, that feels like Hallie saying that, it's okay for you to come back to, those are my values. I do really feel that, but that doesn't need to be communicated to her. It's okay for her to question your motives, like, right? And to deal with the emotions that come from that.
Yeah. And the other thing that makes me think of, and this was a recent conversation in my Help for Heal group, is that sometimes men come into my helper heal group because they think if I can just figure out for her to get better, then we'll be better. And that only will get you so far if it's not sincere. And so really the best thing you can do to help your wife feel safe is to actually do your work and be sincere about it, because she's got elevated senses now after being betrayed. She's on high alert, and she is really good at sensing whether or not it's sincere or whether or not you're just trying to shut her up, for
Mm-hmm.
lack of better words. Like, I'm just trying to, as long as you get better, then we're fine. I don't need to do anything because I'm not going to do that again. And the best thing you can do is actually do your work and be sincere and step into that place of true recovery. And then the empathy will come more natural for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a part here that's just highlight, like, why does she show up with my trigger? Why does she go up with her trigger and then show it in a way that's not like super soft and gentle? Or why does she share information this way? It's because she's valuing the relationship. Why does he shut down, or why does he get aggressive in response? Because it's usually one of those two things. When it's not healthy, it's he gets aggressive in response, or he shuts down and walls off in response. And both of those are because he wants and values the relationship. So both, you got two people there that are valuing the relationship, that are showing up that way. So I want my responsibility to lie with being able to stay inside my window of tolerance, to be able to actually be aware of what my partner's experiencing compared to my natural response of fight or freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Sure.
for sure. What's
And the thing is,
yeah.
we have two people who, in if you're really seeking recovery and you're wanting to choose to stay, you're wanting relational work. And so we have to do our individual work so that we can move toward these challenging conversations and interactions instead of just hoping that they go away or that they stop happening.
Yeah, when you say hoping go away, what do you notice? What is happening when you notice people are hoping they go away? What are they doing?
What I see with the couples that I work with is the husband is showing up maybe to couples coaching sessions or therapy sessions. Maybe he might be coming to my helper heal or another group and he's checking the boxes, but he's not actually doing the work, just trying to do things so that she will feel better that he's doing the work, but he's not actually doing the work. And that's what I see of just, okay, I'm doing these things so that she'll be okay. And then as soon as she's okay, we'll get back to our normal life and we'll move on and we'll get over this. And that's what I see when they're just hoping that it'll go away, is that either they aren't doing any work at all or they're showing up, but they're not. And they're checking the box of attending things, but they're not actually applying the things that are being taught or
Yeah.
they're learning.
What you said when they're doing the work, what's something that comes to mind with actually doing the work compared to checking a
Yeah.
box and attending a group or coming to a one-on-one session?
I think the biggest thing is changed behaviors and willingness to be vulnerable and willingness to be transparent, and even sharing some of their insights from their work and saying, I learned this about myself and this is what it means to me. And I'm recognizing this. And then they're doing the work to step out of those behaviors. So to me, that's what showing up and doing the work is. And then that empathy comes more naturally when they're doing that work for the pain of their betrayed partner.
Love that. Love that. Just highlighting, we have men that enter Choose Recovery Services because there's a podcast or something, and the first thing they're interested in is like help or heal. And that's the only thing they're interested in. And I kind of like want to stop and go, what do you, to all the people listening, are like, where do you think I'm going next? Or what do you think about that? And when I just think about that journey, I can't be present with my partner until I've done my own work, until I've learned to regulate within myself. So help or heal is an amazing place if I've done my own work to be in that situation. But if my only motivation is to calm down the relationship, if I don't have the tools within myself to do that, I'll never be able to do that work. So
Yep. I often encourage the guys in the Help or Heal group to make sure they're either going to Choose 90 or Choose 180, or they have their individual coach or therapist, that they're doing that. And we do some of that work in Help or Heal as well, because part of it is doing your own work. So we talk a lot about regulating yourself and knowing your emotions and things like that. But I'm always encouraging them to have some recovery work, whether that be individual or a recovery group, because it's different. Individual work is different than relational work. And Help or
So,
Heal is focused on helping you understand what your betrayed partner might be experiencing, and then how you can show up in a more empathetic way.
yeah. And my relationship with my partner is an opportunity for me to reflect on myself and how I respond. So if I sit there, because that's the greatest danger, the greatest threat is abandonment as I see it at the most intimate level. Like, what relationship am I most scared of? If that's which it usually is, my romantic attachment, that means that's where it's going to carry the most emotional volatility, which is going to give me all of the experiences that I need to measure and weigh where I'm at in my own journey. And yeah, I noticed that the people that are doing the work are really, and I'm speaking to the person that did the betraying, those people are really seeking to understand why the trigger exists or what's happening inside of them, why their own trigger is happening, and not making it about their partner is the problem. So,
Yes. Yeah. Spot on. I love that.
so we showed up here talking about why isn't she softer? Like, why, if she was just softer, it would be a lot easier for me to navigate and be relational. And it's all the paradigm that I look through. It's all the lens. And if that looks different and I view her trigger and her approach as fighting for the relationship, as searching to be relational, that can really flip things and understanding why I'm showing up the way that I'm showing up. It's not about her soft approach. It's not about how she approaches it, what comes up inside of me and how I view it in the lens that I look through. Hallie, do you have any messages to share before we wrap this thing out?
The message that I like to consistently give is that healing is possible. It's not easy, but it is possible when you have two people who are willing to put in the work and the effort. And what I've witnessed myself and with many couples is that you can actually have a deeper, more connected relationship than probably you even had before, because you didn't know what you didn't have before. And going through this kind of forces you to have to learn how to deal with conflict in a different way, how to understand each other in a different way, and to grow individually and relationally. I guess my biggest message is that it's worth it. It's worth getting the support. It's worth getting the hope. And I think that's why we are even here, Luke, because
Mhm.
you and I both believe in that, have witnessed it and experienced it. And so I just encourage people to reach out and get the support that you need, and don't give up hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Hallie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. If this is something that you connected with, I'd love to meet with you more and talk about it. So what you can do is go to chooserecoveryservices.com or check the show notes. And there, what we can do is set up a quick conversation to meet. Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Facade, where we unmask the authentic self.